What's up, guys? It's Bromley, and I want to take the opportunity today to break down one of the most monumental feats in all of lifting history. That's John Haack's 903 deadlift, and I want to cover this for a few reasons. One, it's always useful to take lessons from the absolute best lifters and try to figure out why they are as good as they are, and if any of those lessons could possibly be applied to us and our bid at getting stronger. The other is that this was such a ridiculous feat. This was such an insane. This is like Julius Maddox clearing an 800-pound bench. This is something that for years everybody thought was impossible. Ed Cohen's 902 deadlift at 220 for decades stood as like the gold standard of just impossible shit in lifting. Like you just have to have the magic leverages, muscle fiber profile, tendon insertions, drive, the desire to suffer through and get that good to begin with, and that everything just had to come together, and that represents the absolute best. Well, John Haack just comes along and absolutely shatters that. It was disgusting to watch. So I want to break it apart a little bit and see what we can learn from that. But just the historical relevance that this is going to have, it's worth covering regardless. I don't usually fawn over lifters, but John has been just chipping away for the last few years and just very consistently building on his numbers, very methodically improving. And he's just further solidifying his role as arguably the greatest lifter of all time. The fact that he competes a weight class down from where Cohen did, I don't know if he's gone up a weight class recently. I mean, he's looking pretty juicy these days. But Cohen pulled his in a hybrid sumo stance. John pulled his conventional, and he did it with like a lot in the tank. It's just insane to watch him. So the video I'm watching takes him through his few warm-up attempts starting at 804 and then steadily moving up to that 903. And his setup is one of the things that I think is really interesting. So if we see him walk out, his head's down, he looks at the bar, he focuses where his feet are going, sets his feet, and he doesn't fidget with them. It's one of the things I like. He knows where he's going, and he doesn't have a long list of setup cues that, and I've been saying this forever, I beat people over the head with this. All of those extra 6, 7, 8, 9 steps that you have into your deadlift setup do not help you. They absolutely do distract you. They potentially take away from your attention, your energy, and the drive that you put into that pull. And it creates more time to second guess yourself, more time to hesitate, and more time to actually forget what your cue is. There's only a couple things you can focus on at a time. 2, maybe 3 cues if you're very seasoned. But the extra, swiveling your feet back and forth like you're stomping a bug into the ground, doing all this weird shit, getting one grip, wiggling your hips, doing weird stuff with your breathing, it's useless. So it's refreshing to see the absolute greatest deadlift feat, I believe, in the history of mankind, if we're taking all factors into consideration, how close he is to the best absolute lifters and the way he pulls it and the body weight he has. I mean, all these things just set this lift apart. To see him do this in a way that's so deliberate, focused, and simple is refreshing. And I think that's probably the biggest lesson we can take from this. So you see, he comes out, head down, staring at the bar, plants one foot, plants the other foot, doesn't screw with them, immediately starts to set his arms. So this is actually one of the things that I kind of like. He brings his arms up typically, and it looks like that's where he's cued himself to kind of prime. And it's like, okay, this is where we're gassing up. Because he gets very calm, doesn't scream or put on a scene before his pulls. So he comes out, that looks like that's the trigger point. And usually the arms up, coming down, it gives you an opportunity to kind of expand your rib cage and get a breath. And it's very helpful if you brace around that expanded rib cage and then come down. And this is something I write about in a Superior Deadlift. If you want to check that out at the store on Amazon, I break down a lot of different deadlift types. And John's approach is a little bit of an outlier. I didn't really cover this. And the reason is he starts in what I call a dive bomb approach, where you take a big breath at the top and you get this insane compression. And usually you see guys come down and explosively rip. John looks to have like kind of a lazy setup, if you can call it that. He doesn't look like he pulls tension out of the bar. That's not to say he's not tight. I absolutely believe he's building tension, but he looks like he's tight by the time his hands are on the bar. And then he can just follow through on the way up. So he doesn't have to fidget with a lot of yanking slack out, trying to find his lats. And I think part of it is he's trained so long that that's very comfortable for him. So I think it is a little bit harder to get tight without actively taking slack out of the bar. On the other hand, and I say this all the time, you get good at how you train. So it doesn't matter so much if you're so drilled in that setup, the simplicity and consistency benefits you. So I see his hands come down, and I mean, he's quick. There's a little bit of stretch reflex there. The second his hands close around the bar, he does not wait. He closes his hands and pulls, and that does allow you to get a little bit of stretch reflex. For people that spend a lot of time at the bottom, you lose the stretch reflex. It dissipates after a couple seconds, and then you're pulling from really a true dead stop. And people that are successful that way just have nasty strong hamstrings, or they have very, very strong legs relative to kind of their posterior, and they can just slam into the weight. But it's always, I think, going to give you a better return if you grab the bar and go immediately. Don't give yourself time to hesitate. The speed with which he pulls this 804 is just stupid. I think his leverages are somewhat advantaged, but he's not this guy that, I mean, look at him. He doesn't lock the bar out on his kneecaps. This isn't a guy that's riding off of his leverage advantage the way some of the best deadlifters do. This isn't like a Lamar Gant. This isn't a Kaler Woolham. This is a guy. There's something else there, man. I don't know if his tendons and muscles are just made out of titanium and they're diesel powered, but it's not just the exploitation of leverages. One of the reasons that I love this lift so much. So he comes out to do an 860. So he's standing away, he's staring at the bar, clasps his belt, walks out, 1 step, 2 step, arms come out, head stays down, gets his breath, down to the bar. The second his hands close, he's pulling. A little bit longer to get the bar started, but it still like wasn't in his way. Very smooth, very even. The stroke is worth paying attention to. It's not like a 2-step pull. He looks very smooth start to finish. And that's a coordination. And a conventional pull, especially once it moved that quick, when you get your hands on the bar and pull all the way through, the 2-step nature of a deadlift, where it's kind of a push to get it started and then a hip extension as your shoulders come back to finish it, it starts to bleed together. And being able to communicate those two things on really intense all-out deadlifts is, I think, very beneficial. It's a little bit of a different style, different approach, different psychology than the guys that come out and are kind of human forklifts. I mean, think of the way Zadrunas Savickas used to pull, where he was just very even and stable and slow almost. He's like Tom Mater. He's a rusty forklift. This is very different. This explosive pull, it starts to blur the patterning. That takes a lot of practice. So this is the big one. He's cocking his neck side to side. He's getting those wrist wraps locked down with a purpose, shaking up the nose torque. You can tell it's on the line here. So this is the first time we really see him start to look like he's doing the nut a little bit. And even then, it's very muted, it's very focused. Step 1, step 2, arms come out. Once he takes that breath and locks down, he's down to the bar and he's pulling. So it is somewhat of a dive bomb approach. It's a little more aggressive. He's such a calm and collected figure that, I expect that to come from the guys that slap themselves in the face and scream, and they get to the bar and they huff and puff, and then they get that breath, and it's really reckless. He's explosive, but he's very controlled and focused. He's like a piston where that gas power is just focusing everything to one end. And I think that's one of his superpowers. I think that's one of the hidden things that is so responsible to his success. All of this effort looks like it just collects and just gets hyper-focused to the one singular outcome. There is no wasted effort. There is no wasted movement. There is no wasted mental effort. His psychology is very tuned in. And all of that comes together over every successive training session over a long training career to give something like this. And I think that's a testament to his focus and his approach. I'd love like an orthopedic surgeon to get in there and to like figure out how far down his tendons are attached. It's like physiologically, like what is going on? There's no doubt that it's the approach, it's the hard work, it's the training protocol. But if we're being real, there has to be this quality when it comes to who puts out the biggest lifts over a population of 7 billion people. That's not only just better than the average, but it's like a standard deviation ahead of second place. It's not just environmental, and it's not just the approach. Is it just being very heavily fast twitch? Is it tendon insertion? Is there some special feature of the nervous system where it just unlocks in a way that other people's don't? I'm sure it's some combination of all of those. But there's no doubt that you're looking at a man that was born to lift for a living. Like this guy is just light years ahead of everybody. As he demolishes this weight class, I know he was supposed to do OSG, he was supposed to do Worlds, and he pulled out. And I don't know if it was because of the minor injuries he got from one of his last meets. I would love to see him do strongman. I've said for a long time, strongman's growing. It's great. There's immense talent, and it's a fun competitive sport. But the lower echelons, the weight classes, the women's divisions, they're still growing. So a lot of the people that are dominating those fields now have a little bit of artificial comfort, of temporary security in their divisions, because the backbone of strongman is strength. Anybody can glue themselves to the movements and figure them out if they're motivated to. But the top guys are always going to be the strongest. We see that in the heavyweight division and the open division, and that hasn't quite come to fruition in these smaller classes. They're still filling out. So all it's going to take is somebody of his caliber, an Olympic medalist in weightlifting, to come out, get an interest in the sport, take it seriously, and then they're just going to set the bar into a different stratosphere for the 80, 90, 105 kilo groups for some of the women's divisions. They have room to grow, so keep an eye on those because they're going to continue fleshing out. Not only would I like to see him do that, but it would be immensely entertaining to see him commit to slapping on another 20, 30 pounds of mass and seeing what he can do in some of the heavier weight classes. John probably shows up on the day of the meet 150 pounds below that. Imagine if he just went for it. Imagine if he's like, I'm just going to go on the master of all cycles. I'm going to overfeed. I'm going to grow into this immense hulkish figure, however much mass I can fit on my frame. I mean, that's how you get 1,000-pound pull at 242. And it looks like it's possible. It looks like it's something that could be done. Just a matter of if he's going to orient himself to that goal and see it through. The laser focus, man, without the theatrics. That's what I love about this lift the most. Just staring at the bar. He can't hear anybody. He's not talking. He's not screaming. He's got his ritual down to a T. Torque, a little shoulder shrug. Foot one, foot two, arms up. Breath. You see him lock down as he takes that breath. Go. And it's just a buttery lockout. And it's almost like he gets it to his knee and he knows, and he just rides it out. He doesn't have to hit the gas. He doesn't have to keep straining. Jesus H. Christ. Well done, John. That's probably one of the top 3 things I think I've ever seen in the history of lifting culture. And I think we're all eager to see more from you. If you're interested in more of my breakdowns, go ahead and check out Superior Deadlift. I think it's one of the most thorough things out there with regards to deadlifting. But also keep in mind the man himself. This guy, as I understand, is very active on social media. Follow his YouTube channel. Go to Instagram. He does Reddit AMAs time to time. And I'm sure this guy has plenty of wisdom out there if you want to know more about how he does it, because what I do is just speculation. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Until next time, this is Bromley. I'll see you.